Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here to give you my final verdict on the Zeiss Loxia 35mm f2, and this is the Biogon optical design, optical formula. And so this is obviously an extremely compact lens, and it is exclusively for Sony FE, or full-frame mirrorless. I've noted about the Loxia series that these are some of the very few lenses that I'm aware of that satisfies the kind of original criteria for what mirrorless was supposed to be in the minds of many people. And that was that it would be, an optically excellent platform, but where you could have diminished size and weight in both the camera bodies, which that has proven true, but also in the lenses that you can mount to them, which has rarely been the case. The Loxia series, however, for the most part satisfies that. And that you are getting, beautifully built Zeiss lenses with Zeiss optical performance in these tiny little, palm-sized packages. And that's particularly true of the 35mm and 50mm f2 lenses that are virtually identical in appearance and size and are extremely compact. Now, in my first look episode, which I'd encourage you to take a look at, I broke down the image quality and the design of these lenses and this particular lens in that. So take a look at that to get the full details if you want more information. But a quick recap of a few of the highlights is that, as I noted, obviously this is a very compact lens. It is a manual focus only lens. Fortunately, however, the focus ring moves just beautifully. I mean, this is manual focus perfection. I mean, you couldn't ask for a smoother, more nicely damped lens than what this one is. It also has a manual aperture ring. Now, manual aperture ring, there are some pluses here that help to highlight the dual nature of this particular lens and all the other Loxia series lenses. And so one of those is the fact that while there is a manual aperture ring, you have a couple of options on how you're going to approach it. First of all, it does have standard clicks, and these are at more precise 1/3 stop clicks along the way. And so you have more control, finite control over the aperture there. But you also have the option by using a little tool from Zeiss to, on the lens mount, you can rotate that a full 180 degrees, and at that point it becomes a declicked aperture, which means that there are no fixed stops and you can just kind of glide through the apertures however you like. In one kind of continuous movement. This is particularly useful for filmmakers in that it allows you to do things like an aperture racking, where you are closing down the aperture to increase the depth of field, or of course you can go in reverse. You could have a larger depth of field and then open the aperture up to where your depth of field becomes smaller, and that way you're able to focus on a specific object, and so it gives you some control of that, which helps from the filmmaking perspective. Now, on the note of filmmaking and the build itself, all of these Loxia lenses, they share, number one, a common filter size and also a roughly common diameter size, which makes them very easy to set up with gearing. They all utilize Zeiss's Lens Gear Mini, which will fit very easily on there. It's a toolless design to where you can very quickly tighten it down perfectly and then have a standard gearing diameter for use with focus follow systems or, similar type work. And so again, these are purposefully designed for, I think, I wouldn't say video first, but certainly with more intentional video design as a part of it, as opposed to a lot of just typical lenses. And of course, that makes a lot of sense, considering that, particularly when you're talking about Sony mirrorless, which this is designed for, it has for a long time been kind of a dual nature platform, not just for stills, but also a great place for capturing video as well. And the Loxia series is designed with that in mind. So everything here is of, the highest grade construction. It's all metal and glass, that anodized metal kind of satin finish. They're gorgeous, gorgeous looking lenses. They do have a rear gasket on them to help with at least a little bit of moisture resistance or weather sealing there at the lens mount. And so, as far as the physical design goes, the only really critique that I had of the Loxia lenses is that because you have a rotating manual focus ring, as well as a rotating manual aperture ring and it's such a little lens is that you have to kind of grab the thing as a whole to either mount or unmount it, because if you just grab a portion of it, everything moves on you. And so you do have to kind of rethink the way that you mount and unmount them. Not a big deal, but just something that I noted was unique about them. Now, in a subsequent episode, we took a look at the image quality from this Loxia 35mm f2. In many ways, if you are familiar with classic Zeiss lenses, this is essentially a very compact classic Zeiss lens that is designed around a little bit more demanding, in the case of the A7R Mark III that I reviewed it on, 42 megapixel sensor. And so what you're going to find is a lot of the typical classic Zeiss characteristics, in that while there is good center sharpness, wide open at f2, edge performance lags a bit behind that, and there is a slightest bit of haze on textures at wide open apertures, and contrast begins to increase at f2.8 and beyond. And once you get stop down to typical landscape apertures like f5.6, the lens becomes devastatingly sharp. I mean, it becomes a fantastic landscape lens, as you can see from some of these photos, when you stop it down to those typical landscape apertures. And so, I mean, that part is wonderful. And I've noted that with some classic Zeiss lenses before, that it's not like these, huge, highly corrected modern lenses that are designed to be, sharp from edge to edge at f2, but sometimes lose a lot of character in the process. This is a lens with a lot of optical character. And you have to kind of choose what your priorities are. If you tend to shoot with smaller apertures, I mean, this gives you as I noted, I mean, it's really, really amazing for landscape for a few reasons. As I noted, it's extremely sharp, beautiful contrast for landscape work at smaller apertures. It also produces a really great looking sunburst effect, sun star. And so that is a nice kind of additional touch to a lot of images. And then beyond that, it really has that typically fantastic Zeiss color. And so I really noted that as a standout, that images look really, really great right out of the camera. And if you're a person who prefers accurate color or to do little post-processing, the Loxia series is going to be right up your alley. As far as the wide open character of the lens, as I noted, I mean, it has enough center sharpness and, maybe center 2/3 of the frame for most any kind of work. Unless you're pixel peeping, you're going to see a little bit of that haze on some of the textures. And I also found wide open, like in some very bright areas of contrast, that you will see a little of that haze or, kind of blurring of the edges. But at the same time, it has a really beautiful and unique bokeh signature that I think a lot of people will find artistic and pleasing. And of course, you still get all of that great character in terms of there is still some micro contrast at f2.8. It really kicks into gear, but also you're getting that fantastic color wide open. And so I suspect that a lot of people will find wide open images to be very pleasing, and it also makes it an intriguing portrait lens if you're not interested in having every single pore, kind of delineated, and instead you're looking for just a beautiful image at large. And it's certainly capable of doing all of that very, very well. At the end of the day, like most Zeiss lenses, there are a couple of the fine details that make these more of a niche product. The first, of course, is the all-manual nature of the lens. And some people are just not interested in manual focus. That being said, you can't ask for a nicer platform for shooting manual focus lenses than Sony mirrorless bodies. Between the in-body image stabilization and a lot of them, but beyond that, all of the manual focus aids, and of course these are designed to where as you begin to input any kind of input on the manual focus ring, it will automatically, on both the LCD or the viewfinder, it will magnify the selected focus point area, or default to center point focus if nothing else is selected. And so that allows you to very easily visually confirm focus and the beautifully precise manual focus action there. It makes it really kind of a joy to manually focus these. And again, I know it's not for everybody, but this is a pretty sweet way way to get your feet wet with manual focus because they are so easy to use. But that, of course, is an issue for some people. The second thing, of course, is price. Zeiss lenses are never known for being low priced, and I think that Zeiss is intentional about their higher pricing. Now, number one, I mean, you are getting higher grade build performance and, you know, kind of optical repeatability than you are with cheaper lenses. The other thing is that I think Zeiss does try to maintain a certain level of exclusiveness with their products. And so, I mean, people that love Zeiss, they really love Zeiss. But the lens is $1,299 in the US market, which is certainly a fairly big chunk of money for a manual focus lens with a not particularly large maximum aperture. And this is one case where the Loxia version is actually more expensive than, say, the Milvus 35mm f2 lens. But at the same time, if you are looking for something unique for your images, or even more importantly, if you are a filmmaker, this is a lens probably like a lot of the Loxia series. I mean, they come designed for filmmakers, and so, I mean, if you're looking for something like that, I mean, this is a beautiful option to have for video, and I found it a fantastic joy to use for video. I used a product I have called the Focus Shifter that I reviewed a while back, and so it makes it very easy to kind of have a joystick to control a focus, and it's just beautiful. They're small and light and easy to mount onto a camera on a motorized gimbal system and get smooth footage. I mean, just a lot of great things. And so if video is your priority, the Loxia series is definitely worth a look. I'm Dustin Abbott. If you look in the description down below, you can find linkage to my full text written review, lots of sample images as a part of that. Or if you just want to look at images, there's also a link there to my image gallery. Because I've had these for a while and I've shot with them in a variety of situations, I've got a lot of gorgeous images there that I encourage you to go and take a look at. You can also find buying links if you want to purchase one for yourself. And of course, beyond that, you can also follow me on social media or become a patron, sign up for my newsletter. And if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.